Welcome to this special live edition of Judge of Character. Hope you guys are all enjoying the live format. I definitely am, and I'm glad you have joined me for this very special episode. Now, for all of you who are not familiar, recently Omega level mutants have come. I'm glad you have joined me for this very clear-cut definition for now. For all of you who are not familiar, recently and Omega level mutants have come. I'm glad you have joined me for this around here. So if there's definition now, for all of you who has not been familiar, recently and Omega level mutants have come. I'm glad you have joined me for this around here. So if there's definition now, for all of you who has not been familiar, recently and Omega level mutants have come. I'm glad you have joined me for this around here. So if there's definition now, for all of you who has not been familiar, is there a recent one? And hopefully that takes care of it. Sorry about that if you were hearing one. Still hearing one? Let's check something out. Hope that takes care of everything. Does things sound better? Things clear to you now? How's everybody hearing things? Did you see the full... I did not see the full cast yet, Vinny Montaigne. So I'm glad you guys are here. First time trying something else. Were you wearing that shirt or no? Were you wearing that shirt? I'm wearing it now. I wasn't wearing it before, no. Is everything sounding better now? Everything sounding good? Sorry about that. I don't know why I said that, all Canadian, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me know. Everything much better now? And thank you for the 3 thumbs up, by the way. Okay, good. So for those of you who may not know, the House of X storyline and Powers of 10 storyline, don't worry, I will not be spoiling really anything from there. But there was now a clear-cut definition of Omega level mutant, which has been a term that's been thrown around ever since the 80s. If I'm not mistaken. I think that was the first time it popped up in print for the comics. I think it was the 1986 issue of Uncanny X-Men number 208, if I'm not mistaken, where they brought up Class Omega. Now, since then, they've been brought up a little bit more, and they've been used in kind of passing. There's been no real clear definition of it. Omega level mutant was just a term they threw out to describe a very powerful mutant. But we've always wanted to know what an Omega level mutant was. But apparently now, with this new storyline, we have a definitive answer. So, what is that answer? Well, let's just get right on into it. The definition, as of now, that we have is a mutant whose dominant power is deemed to register or reach an undefinable upper limit of that power's specific classification. So what does that mean? Well, the idea is that if there is a mutant whose power is so large at their one specific power, not all-encompassing, not in all powers, if they have one specific power that is so powerful that you can't really define its limit, then that would qualify them as an Omega level mutant. So the problem is, we do have some debate on this, because there are other people who were to classifying an Omega level mutant by saying a mutant who is the best at their one particular power. However, that also doesn't work 100% either, because that would mean there might be people who have powers that just one thing that nobody else has, and that would make them by default the best. For example, Eye Boy. As far as I know, there are no other mutants that have eyes all over their body. Does that mean Eye Boy should be Omega level? Absolutely not, because there are plenty of characters with very specific powers. So you can't count that. But, so now here's the debate, because this is the problem now. Because now when you say it's anybody who has powers that are so powerful that they go into an upper echelon, an undefinable power, an undefinable set, well, okay, but what if this means multiple people? What if the power by definition is undefinable? Then we kind of have a problem with this, because now this gets kind of confusing. Well, hey, Vinny Montaigne, glad to see you. Okay, not to get off subject, Dave, but what was your thoughts about Steinfeld as Kate Bishop? That's cool. She's a very talented actress. Fine by me. Mega level metahumans. Okay, so that's the question now. There's a lot of issues with this. Now, beforehand, and also previously to this, there were a lot of changes over who counts as Omega and who doesn't. So we're also going to get into that, and I'm going to want your verdict on not only who should be classified as an Omega level mutant, who on this list do you think should not be classified as Omega level mutant, and who isn't on the list that should be? As well as also saying if we actually agree with this definition, again, that definition being a mutant whose dominant power is deemed to register or reach an undefinable upper limit of that power-specific classification. We're going to see how we work with this. So might as well move into who these specific mutants are. So there's a definitive list now, because again, as I mentioned before, it was never really clearly defined because there were people who would move seemingly on and off this list all the time. Now we have a definitive list that, at least for now, seems to be set in stone. And it's a definitive list. That's how big this is, because I'm using the term definitive because a lot of this is unprecedented because we never had a crystal clear answer until now. So the mutants on this list are Jamie Braddock, Iceman, Elixir, Jean Grey, Legion, Magneto, Proteus, Mr. M, Storm, Exodus, Quentin Quire, Franklin Richards, Vulcan, and Hope Summers. All right. Interesting list, would you not say? Thank you for the likes, and thank you for being here, by the way. So now my issue with some of these are pretty interesting. Now I'm a huge Quentin Quire fan. I like him a lot. As a psychic, I think he does have a lot of power, and they have very much made that clear. Same thing with Jean Grey, although I would argue that a lot of it is on the Phoenix Force side. But my biggest issue with it is that apparently Jean Grey is listed as a psychic. It's her telepathic abilities is what makes her undefinable, not necessarily her telekinetic ability, which was her original power. The telepathy came a little bit later. And that's kind of where I have a problem, because while I like Quentin Quire a lot, and I understand that the Phoenix is a huge part of it, and I think Jean Grey should only qualify when she is the Phoenix, my issue with it is, where's Professor Xavier on this list? For me, I have clear boundaries on this. Not everybody does. But for me, it's definitive, it's no questions asked. The most powerful telepath in all of Marvel is Professor X. No questions asked, it's Professor X. So if Jean qualifies for her telepathy, and so does Quentin Quire, then you know what? I say you should put Professor X on there. And so I would have no problem with either of these characters being on this list if Professor X was on. But without Professor X, I'm really questioning both of them. And Jean Grey, I would like to know if it's the Phoenix or just Jean Grey, because if it's just Jean Grey, I definitely have an issue. Proteus and Legion, I think they're good answers. I think they should be on this list. Magneto is someone who's gone off and on. Now, his power being defined by his ability to change the gravitational pull, the magnetic poles of the Earth, being able to throw off gravity and everything like that, it's being so undefinable that his ability for magnetism is unprecedented, I think is an interesting aspect, and that's why they count him as undefinable, especially because we really don't know how far his power extends. For example, here's something that, as far as I know, has never been brought up in comics. Can Magneto control magnetic fields on other planets? We know he can master magnetic fields on Earth, but can he control the magnetic fields on other planets? How far away can he do it for, and how much of it that can affect? If that's something I would totally understand, but because we don't even have the definition, because we don't even know how far his power reaches, Magneto is counted as undefinable, therefore Omega level. Mark Strike asks, is Wolverine Omega level? No, he is not on this list. His powers are not clearly undefinable, even though, now, this doesn't mean we haven't seen the limits of there, or limitless. It just means it's almost impossible to define how far can their powers extend. And because of the way magnetism works, yeah, we don't really know how to define this, because we don't even know a lot about Omega level magnetism in other planets, or how far that reaches. Equal any mutant who are not reality warpers, or not only planetary level and below. Dave, Omega level mutants equal any mutant who are not reality warpers or are not planetary level and below. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. What does Omega level mean? Well, AA, let's say it yet one more time. According to this recent definition, as definitively given by Marvel in the new House of X storyline, a mutant whose dominant power is deemed to register or reach an undefinable upper limit of that power-specific classification. All right, so, yet again, there we go. You know what? I will even go over, so far, I will actually even do this for you guys. And I'm enjoying this live stream. It's cool, a different format, and thank you for the thumbs up. I'm going to enjoy this new format because it does get me to interact and catch things up. So let's go over and do that now. I'm going over and posting the definitions right there. Iceman has a was a previous Omega under Claremont. That's right, and he did, as far if I remember correctly, have his Omega level status temporarily removed. However, he's back on the list officially as an Omega level mutant yet again, because the idea here is, when it comes to the science behind ice, making things cold, you're actually removing energy from something. You're actually taking energy away. That's not an easy task. So the idea is that he can master energy and remove energy from something, achieving absolute zero. And absolute zero, let's remember, is just hypothetical. We've never actually seen or witnessed absolute zero in real life. We assume what it is. We've seen the lowest things can go, and we just back it off a little and just assume that's absolute zero. But Iceman can turn things into absolute zero, meaning he can remove all possible energy from something. That's no easy task. And removing energy, because you don't know how much energy can be removed, is seen as undefinable. You hear me using the term a lot. Thoughts on Roy Harper, a.k.a. Speedy in comics? I'm a big Speedy fan. I think he's been handled a little drama queenie at times, and he's been a little too angsty for my taste, but overall, I'm a fan of Speedy. Okay, so thoughts on new comics, Robin dropping the name Robin? Well, I think that's, by definition, weird. Dave, I mean, Omega level mutants are planetary level threats and not higher than that. Well, that's not the current definition, but there you go. Known as promo live, sort of like stand-up comedy. That would be fun. I wouldn't mind that. Honest promos are not as interactive, but I wouldn't mind that. That's an interesting idea. I might have to look into that. Okay, so let's move on to the next list. Next person on this list, or next character. Jamie Braddock. Now, Jamie Braddock, not the biggest. Now, here's where I think the first major issues of this new definition comes. There's going to be a lot of characters that most people have never heard of or not cared about, but by the definition, they kind of have to incorporate them in. Now, he is a mutant. He has reality warping power, so right there, base up, that's going to put the difference out there. And he is brothers with Psylocke and Captain Britain. Now he's a more low-level character for sure, definitely not as famous. But because he can warp reality, you got that's pretty undefinable, because right there, it's hard to define someone who can change reality. Did they have Omega level mutates? Good question. As far as I know, not that I'm aware of at the moment. But here's my issue with this one. With Jamie Braddock, the issue is Scarlet Witch. Now, they changed her recently to say that she's not really a mutant. She's gone back and forth whether or not she's a mutant, and now apparently she's not. But if that was the case, Scarlet Witch definitely belongs. And she is a mutant. She should be a mutant. She should be Magneto's daughter. That's how I prefer it. All right. So, there we go. Next, so that is my issue with it. Is my first major issue is that because of this specific definition, we're going to find a lot of characters that really don't deserve the status, and they gain nothing by it, that are going to be put on this list. But then there are also going to be other characters that Scarlet Witch. Another problem I have is that I wish she was on the list too, because I think she should be. Next up is Elixir. Now here's another obscure character that is going on this Omega level list, and I guess he should be, because he has the ability to manipulate all kinds of life. Biological manipulation is his key. It's part of his power set. And yeah, it's a bonkers power set, because he's capable of controlling biological structures of any organic matter, including his own body. He must be in a relative close proximity to it, but he can do almost anything to something biological, causing pain, causing or healing, manipulating life forces and energy. Yeah, it's a pretty big thing. Cleansing the body completely of toxins. He can do all kinds of stuff as long as it's biological. And yeah, again, that sounds pretty powerful, although not necessarily the biggest character, I would say. Not that. I also think that he's a character that goes on my list, as I wrote in Crack.com. I have an article on Crack.com of he's one of those characters. Not necessarily talking about him specifically, but I have an article on Crack.com about, in a world of superpowers, how come there are certain things that are problems in superpower worlds that I don't understand. And when it comes to Elixir being in this world, I think it's very weird that there's still a lot of regular everyday problems that shouldn't exist. Where are mutants born with magical powers? The X gene, buddy. Franklin Richards would be an awesome Omega level mutant. He absolutely would be, and absolutely should be, and he absolutely is. Sorry if you missed him, but yes, Franklin Richards, might as well get into him now, is an Omega level mutant. Franklin Richards can create little tiny pocket dimensions if he wants to. He can reconstitute reality. He's a huge Omega level mutant, and if he wasn't, He should be. So Franklin Richards, absolute son of Reed and Sue Richards from the Fantastic Four. So yes, Franklin Richards, super mutant for sure, Omega level mutant. This one is a no questions asked room. Might as well go into that one. So there we go. Next up, Legion from the show Legion. A lot of psychic powers. Hard to define because there's so many different personalities, so many powers. We actually don't even know what he's fully capable of. Next, I mentioned him as well as Proteus. Proteus, another reality warper, can control reality. Yeah, you get that power as far as I'm concerned. Not that hard to predict here. Next up is Mr. M. Now, Mr. M is another more obscure character. He isn't even all that old, he's been around about 15 years. He's now an Omega level mutant. His real name is Owen Reese, and Mr. M has the ability to control things on a subatomic level. And yeah, that's pretty big. Subatomic, he can control subatoms. Yeah, so that's why he makes this list, even if he is a fairly obscure character. He also has the ability to be intangible, super strong, heal injuries, all that kind of stuff. All the things that go with it. So he can control things down on a subatomic level. Alright, moving right along. Next up, another lesser known character, Exodus. Exodus he's a character who's been around a little bit longer than Mr. M, and he has the ability of telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, because a lot of telepaths on this list. He's immortal, superhuman strength, all those things, regenerative abilities, yada, 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 yada. He's not really the most awesome character out there. I'll be the first to say, but no, Doctor Doom is not Omega level mutant because he is not a mutant. Don't forget don't. But Exodus is one of those super overpowered characters, like a lot of them do. Okay, then let's go with the other Summers brother, Vulcan. Now, one thing that I think is interesting about this, he was the third secret Summers brother between Havoc and Cyclops. It was rumored that they had him, and he did. Now, they had him, and then it was finally revealed that there was indeed a third Summers brother, Kid Vulcan. Now, he spent a lot of his time in space, very cosmic, super OP. He has energy absorption powers, flight, creates force fields, life support and limited regeneration, a variety of energy blasts like his brothers do, but almost more so. He could also siphon energy and disrupt energy. He has superpowers, replications, and a whole vast of control. And he can also kind of control reality a little bit too, as well as psychic powers, psionic powers. So he's got a lot of powers. Not one of my favorite characters, but again, other than Havoc, I'm not the biggest fan of the Summers family, with a few exceptions, like Havoc, Cable, and Omega level mutant Hope Summers. Hope Summers came about recently. She was a part of the Messiah storyline, which was actually a pretty good story. I really like that story arc a lot. Because she can copy all kinds of mutant powers, it's impossible to define her because she can mimic anybody's powers. Not like Rogue where she steals it. She can just straight up have it. And she also can activate powers in other people too. So she's extremely powerful and has a connection to the Phoenix Force. So again, if we're using the Phoenix Force as a gauge, I think that's a big part of why it makes her there too. Deadpool Omega level mutant, says Vinny Montaigne? No. His classification as a mutant actually gets juggled around back and forth whether he even is a mutant or not. But apparently, his regenerative powers do have a definable limit, or he's not a mutant. It's either of those cases. But Deadpool, if he is qualifying as a mutant, I think he should qualify because of how outrageous his healing factor is. I think he should qualify. Especially since he's been known to even live past cures and regenerate beyond all that. Deadpool's a mutate. Sometimes. Other times he's been called as a mutant. As Deadpool himself has said, it depends on who's writing. All right. And finally, I want to get to, I think, one of the big ones, Storm. So with Storm being able to control weather, this does become a very interesting story indeed. Because she can make things cold, which means she can control energy, which is very similar to Iceman. And on top of that, she can conjure up lightning and rain and all these kinds of things. But now here's the other question. Is she creating rain? If she's creating water, that is a way different story, and of course, Omega level for sure. But if she is just manipulating the weather conditions to be able to make it rain, then it's still cool. But I don't know how. I don't know if that really would qualify if she's just controlling the Earth. However, where I think it gets really interesting is the idea of now they don't tap into this too much, but how does Storm work in other planets or in space? They tapped into it from here and there, but we really got to start thinking about this. Storm, if she is just being able to manipulate Earth weather, then if she's on a different planet with different weather conditions, then her power should change. So she wouldn't be able to necessarily do everything she can on Earth. But then in space, where there is no weather, she shouldn't be able to create lightning. She shouldn't be able to create wind gusts. She shouldn't be able to create anything because she's in a place devoid of weather. So is she bound by the planet she's on or the specific environment where she is? And if not, then she's creating things out of nothing. That's even more impressive. So what do you think on that one? All right, so let's get down to the list. So now we've gone over all these Omega level mutants. Now we've gone over the definition. Let's throw some things out there. So what do you guys want from the definition of Omega level mutants? First, let's just talk about the current definition, as I have posted several times. Let's go to a vote. Do you like this current iteration? Do you like this definition for Omega level mutants having an undefinable power limit? A limit that is undefinable, unreachable, an upper limit that is undefinable of that specific powers classification. Do you like this? Yes or no? Yeah, Darwin is not there base up. Channeled the energy of a galactic core through her body to destroy a brood infecting her. That's right, Ron. Good call. Yeah. Not according to this official list there, Mark Strike. So according to this official list, Darwin not. But yes, have you ever heard of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde? Yeah, of course I have. So anyway, how do you guys feel about the current definition? Do you guys like this definition as presented in House of X? Yes or no? Where do we stand? What's your vote? Man, a lot of you guys are Darwin fans. Or I just realized it's just base up. Yeah, so anyway, what's your definition? Do you like this? Do you like it? Yes? No? Maybe? Possibly? What do we got? And thank you for the thumbs up, by the way. It's too restrictive. Base up says it's too restrictive. Double A likes it. This is rough for Mark Strike, and I hear you on that. It's too restrictive for you, says base up. Okay. Double A likes it. I like that we have one. I like that there is a definition. That I do like. Rogue is not on there, no. I think that might be because there is an upper limit to, we can define an upper limit. Like, while we've seen her power up, I think, like, she doesn't hold them on to forever. Even when she allegedly holds on to the powers forever, she doesn't really hold on to them forever. We've seen them go away. And, well, there have been other times, and it does take its toll on her. Like, there are certain characters she struggles with stealing powers from, or she hurts, or it hurts her too, and she can't go beyond that. So she does have limits. It's a cool concept. I like that we have a definition. Personally, my verdict is that I am not the biggest fan of this, since it looks like we're at a tie right now, because we got one vote for yes, one vote for no, and Mark Strike is just in. So I'm just going to go ahead, and it should include a mutant with enough power to destroy and affect an entire planet. Yes. Yeah, okay, so I think this having an Omega level being something that's just undefinable is kind of vague. And there's a lot of things that are undefinable to a higher limit. Again, like eye boy. The amount of eyes, is it definable? You know, who's to say? What do you mean by undefinable? The maximum limits of their powers cannot be defined. It's too, to me, you think it's too, based up this says it's too restrictive. For me, it's too vague. I don't know what that means. I think it's kind of it's like it sounds cool, but I don't think it makes enough sense. And it might, as House of X continues, maybe they'll change it. But for me, right now, it's too vague. I don't think there's a clear enough answer to it. So, unfortunately, I'm not there. That was lame. Hey, Arthur Pryor. Wow, deep cut. So for me, I'm not the biggest fan of this definition because I just don't think it makes enough sense. I don't think it's clear enough. But I'm glad that we have a definitive definition, even if it's not the best at being definitive. All right, next. This list of Omega level mutants. Jamie Broddock, Iceman, Elixir, Jean Grey, Legion, Magneto, Proteus, Mr. M, Storm, Exodus, Quentin Quire, Franklin Richard, Valken, and Hope Summers. I'm going to copy this right now and post it in the chat. Who do you want off this list? Do you think this list is perfect just the way it is, or do you think there should be people, or are there people on this list that you think should not be? I'm going to post it right now. We'll get into who you want on it later. Right now, let's talk about who needs to be vetoed, if anybody. So, just needs to be a judge. So here's the jury. You guys are the jury. Let me know. Look at the list. Tell me who do you think needs to get out there. Ron says he not on Hickman's list, but Doug Ramsey. Cypher, absolutely, that's a very good answer. Did mention Cypher, how he can Cypher can read different languages, and so far he's been able to read languages that no one speaks, or languages he hasn't seen, like binary or mathematical languages. As far as I'm concerned, if there's a way to communicate, he can decipher it. I think that's pretty undefinable. But yeah, he should be on that list by that definition, because in his classification, he is that powerful. Seems undefinable. In his upper limit cannot be defined by his upper level. Since he can even decipher languages that people make up. So yeah, why isn't he on that? Mimic is a good answer. Double A wants to get rid of Franklin Richards. Man, Franklin Richards is one of the guarantees for that list for me. Okay, no clue who any of them are. Not surprised, Arthur. Marky is a mutant because he was born with powers. And it's about the X gene. He has the X gene. That's what it really comes down to. Deadpool, on the other hand, we don't know. We don't know. Since his actual past has never been really clearly defined, as well as while in the movies and comic books, it's mostly assumed we know he's Wade Wilson. There's been disputes about that. So for Deadpool, it's very hard. It's very hard to gauge. All right. So anybody else that you guys want to? If I want Franklin off because he's not a mutant, his mommy dad. He's a mutant because he has the X gene. Dave, how do you feel about Thomas Wayne as Batman? I thought it was a cool idea, but it's not one of those things that needs to be permanent or ongoing. It should be a one-off. Oh, by the way, I also saw the Hush movie, cartoon movie. Not the biggest fan. All right, so now, okay, so here we go. So that's, yeah, mutants, there are plenty of regular flat scan humans who have mutant children, so it doesn't matter who your parents are. That's not the definition of being a mutant. A mutant means whether or not you have the X gene. Iceman is definitely a mutant. I think Double A has just gone into troll territory again. Based up Mr. Fantastic and Invisible One, I don't believe are mutants. Slade, that is true. There is a play off of Slade. No, they don't have the X gene. They are mutates because they were mutated. Franklin Richard was born with the X gene. Yes, base up, that is correct. As far as I'm concerned. Now, all right, so it seems like you guys are pretty sitting with this list. You guys don't have a problem with too many people on it. My personal vetoes that I don't really think belong on there, I don't have a power set person that I don't belong. I think Quentin Quire, he's like one of my boys, but I think he's probably the weakest on this list. But as far as I'm concerned, by their loose definition, I kind of have to give it to all of them. But in terms of who should actually get Omega level status, I don't think a lot of these mutants should qualify, because there's also a lot of redundancy here. There's a lot of psychic powers, energy absorption powers, and reality manipulation. All of these are similar powers, and I would like to see them spread out a little bit more. I miss the old definition, which is no longer in play, where people were talking about the best in their personal field. Like, this person is Omega because they're the best at this one specific power. I preferred that. But I understand that opens up the floodgates to having a lot of really weak characters who are just happen to be the best at their one specific lane power being introduced. So that's a problem with that. Where's Apocalypse? Base up, fantastic question. I would love to know that myself, because now let's get in. Since you bring it up, might as well get into mutants that you think belong on this list that aren't there. Number one for me is Professor Xavier. Apocalypse absolutely belongs on this list. Okay, base up, you were doing so well. But Apocalypse definitely belongs on this list. So does Professor X. Those are my two major ones that I think absolutely should be on here, and I think it's very confusing as to why they're not. Anybody else that you got? You guys, base up did bring up Darwin. Not a bad answer either. Yeah, Double A's with me on the Professor X. I like that. Thank you for the thumbs up, by the way, guys. Yeah, so far we're all on the same page. Professor X, Apocalypse, absolutely agree. Darwin's not a bad pick. So I'm going to go with there. Okay, Base Up wants to chime in. Magneto is on the list, Base Up. Mimic, I don't really agree. Mimic does have powers. Gambit, now that's an interesting one. Gambit as well as Chamber, because of their abilities, because Gambit has been theorized to be a guy to be made of pure energy. So Gambit not being on this list, considering some of his past definitions of his powers being almost unlimited, and Mr. Sinister had to limit it with brain surgery, kind of makes you feel like Gambit should be on the list. But maybe the brain surgery is the reason why he's not on the list. Like maybe if he didn't have the surgery, maybe he would be. Enough with Santa Claus already. Mimic, I don't agree with. New subscriber, welcome. Vulcan is on the list, and but Gambit's an interesting one. But by definition of Gambit, I also feel Chamber. If we're going to consider Gambit, Chamber should be there too. My two big ones though that are no questions asked are Professor X and Apocalypse. How they're not on this list makes no sense. Arthur is stupid, double A. She-Hulk is not a mutant, but he's getting there. All right, so anybody else that you think should be on this list that isn't? Anyone else? Any takers? Happy to hear all suggestions. All right, well, that looks like it's going to do it for this live edition of Judge Your Character. Thank you so much for coming out to the comic book live stream. I really did appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I like doing this new format live, and it's good to be able to do these shows where I interact with you, the people. So thank you to all the Know It All Nation. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate it so much. And as always, Dave, no.